Imagine a village haunted by deception and something far darker. Every night, someone dies, and every day, the villagers gather to hunt for the killer among them. In their midst, townsfolk, outsiders, minions, and even a demon, masquerading as a friend. This is Blood on the Clocktower. Blood on the Clocktower is a social deduction game, similar to Werewolf or Mafia. But this is different because even when you die, you don't stop playing. You can still talk, strategize, and influence the living. Some characters may even need to die to unlock their special ability. The dead even get one final vote to try and kill the demon. Blood on the Clocktower is a storytelling party game for 5 to 20 plus players, and it's run by a storyteller. The game takes place in Ravenswood Bluff, a town under siege by a demon. Each player gets a secret role with unique abilities. Some are good and trying to find and execute the demon, while others are evil, trying to protect it and sow confusion. There are several official scripts, or game sets, on their website, and these control what characters are in play and how the game should go. Today, we will be looking at the beginner-friendly Trouble Brewing. Welcome to Aaron Poorly Explains How to Play a Game. In Trouble Brewing, there are 13 townsfolk, the good villagers which have helpful powers. They are the people you would expect to see in a small village. Their abilities help them uncover the truth as long as they can survive long enough to use them. There are 4 outsiders, also members of the good team, but their abilities or lack thereof make things harder for the town. There are 4 minions, which are servants of the demon. They know who the demon is and help to protect its identity. Each of them has a unique trick up their sleeve. And finally, there is 1 demon, the monster killing a player each night. Only a handful of these roles will appear in any game based on the character count. Let's meet the characters, starting with the good team. The first of the townsfolk is the Washerwoman. They start by knowing that one of 2 players is a particular townsfolk. So during the first night, the Washerwoman is woken up, shown 2 players, and learns the character of one of them. It's a head start on finding allies. Even though you don't learn any information about evil players, you can at least confirm the identity of a good one. I'm going to give some examples using some user-submitted names. The Washerwoman is woken up and learns that either Krungle or Sasha is the chef. In reality, Krungle is the chef and Sasha is the Ravenkeeper. The players that the Washerwoman is shown are not necessarily good guys, though. The Washerwoman could instead be shown Krungle and Skelly could be the imp. The Librarian starts the game by knowing that one of 2 players is a particular outsider, or that none are in play. For example, the Librarian could be woken up and shown Simon and Amadeus. Simon is the saint and Amadeus is the Scarlet Woman. The Librarian would know that either one of them is the saint. Or they could be woken up and the storyteller could give them 0, meaning that there are no outsiders in play. This is helpful because the evil team could totally just pretend to be an outsider. The outsiders have weird abilities and might not want to come forward anyways. But if the Librarian knows that there are none in play, they know that that's a suspicious person. The Investigator starts the game by knowing that one of 2 players is a particular minion. So very similar to Washerwoman and Librarian, except Investigator is the first character we come to who gets to know information directly about the evil team. This is useful to know who to be wary around. For example, the Investigator could be woken up and told that either Gruntus or Krungle is the Baron, when in reality, Gruntus is the Baron and Krungle is the Mayor. But it's not always that the Investigator is given one good player and one evil player. For example, maybe Skelly is the spy and Gruntus is the poisoner, and the Investigator just knows that there is a poisoner. The chef gets to know how many pairs of evil players there are, and by pairs, they mean sitting next to. There will be a town square board so that everyone knows who is sitting next to whom, even if it's not a perfect circle that the actual players are seated in. A pair is 2 players sitting next to each other, but if there are 3 in a row, this middle player would count as being part of 2 pairs. So the chef would learn 2. So if 4 evil players are sitting next to each other, that's 1, 2, 3 pairs. And much like the last 3, this is only information that you get on the first night. The Washerwoman, Librarian, Investigator, and Chef don't learn anything else and won't be awoken on any subsequent night. An example is that maybe there are no evil players sitting next to each other, so the chef could learn 0. Or there could be a Baron and a Scarlet Woman sitting next to each other on this side, and a couple players later it's the Imp and the Spy. Then the chef would learn too. The Empath is awoken each night and learns how many of their alive neighbors are evil. This role gets new information every night, so the evil team would want to target them. And the Empath doesn't know if they're sitting next to a minion or a demon, just that the player is evil. The Empath does not detect dead players. So for example, the Empath could be sitting between Sasha and Simon. That night they learn 0, but maybe Sasha is killed during the day. So now the Empath is seated between Simon and Amadeus. Now they could learn 1 if Amadeus is evil. The fortune teller is awoken each night and chooses 2 players to find out if either is a demon. But there is one good player that will register as a demon to them. This good player that registers as a demon is called a red herring. Red herrings will always read to the fortune teller as a demon. This is another role that's very powerful, so the evil team will want to target them. And just because the fortune teller learns someone isn't a demon doesn't mean they should discount them that quickly, because they could be a minion. For example, the fortune teller could choose Simon and Skelly and learn yes, even if Simon and Skelly are both good players. In this situation, Skelly is the red herring, while another time they could choose Krungle and Sasha and still learn a yes because Krungle is the imp. The fortune teller won't know which of the 2 that they chose is the demon, so they'll have to try and ask different groupings. As a last example, the fortune teller could choose Amadeus and Grungle and learn no, because both of them are not the demon, although both of them could be minions. Are you still with me? We're halfway through the townsfolk. The Undertaker is awoken each night to learn which character died by execution that day. And this is only deaths by execution. Any other deaths caused by some other means will not count. This can get a little tricky because there are characters we have yet to talk about that can register as other ones. For example, if the Spy is executed, the Undertaker could be shown that the Butler died. This is because the Spy is able to register as a butler. The more players are executed, the more the Undertaker learns, so it's to their benefit to facilitate as many executions as possible. For example, Sasha was executed during the day, and the Undertaker is shown the mayor symbol because she was the mayor. Each night, the monk is awoken and can choose 1 player that isn't themselves to keep safe from the demon. Their job is to read the game and keep the correct player alive. They'd probably want to target somebody like the Empath or the fortune teller because they learn new information every night. And if the demon chooses to attack a player that the monk has already protected, then that player lives, and the demon does not get another chance to try to kill someone during the night. For example, the monk chooses to protect Skelly. The demon chooses to attack Skelly, so there are no deaths that night. But if the monk chooses to protect Sasha and the demon attacks Skelly, then Skelly dies. The monk does not get to know which player the demon is targeting. If the Ravenkeeper dies at night, they're awoken to choose a player and learn their character. So this player wants to die, but specifically by the demon's hand and not execution. Therefore, this player should make themselves a target to the demon. They could try bluffing as another character, such as the Empath, somebody that the demon would want to kill, but that might make them suspicious to the townsfolk and they risk dying by execution. This power isn't limited to just living characters. The Ravenkeeper can choose a dead character. For example, Simon, the Ravenkeeper, is killed during the night by the demon. Simon is awoken and chooses Krungle to learn the character of. They learn Krungle is the Baron. And because the dead are still allowed to talk, in the morning, Simon can choose to tell everyone that Krungle is the Baron. The first time the Virgin is nominated, if the nominator is a townsfolk, they are executed immediately. So this is a scary ability. And because there's only 1 execution per day, the day ends immediately. Everyone has to go back to sleep and they enter the night phase again. This is true even if there are already players up for nomination. Those nominations are cut short and any ghost votes that have been spent are now wasted. If an outsider minion or demon nominates the Virgin, nothing happens. But after being nominated for the first time, the Virgin loses their ability. This can be helpful for narrowing down who is and is not a townsfolk. But just because somebody nominates the Virgin and doesn't die, doesn't mean they're on the evil team, because we have to remember, outsiders are on the good team. We haven't gotten into this yet, but even if the Virgin is poisoned, they still lose their ability when somebody first nominates them. This is very minimally important, and we'll learn what poisoning is later. For example, maybe the Washerwoman nominates the Virgin. The Washerwoman is immediately executed and the day ends, but maybe the Saint nominates the Virgin. Even though the saint is on the good team, they stay alive because they are an outsider. And now, people can freely nominate the Virgin. Even though it is a little scary for a townsfolk to nominate the Virgin, it is also beneficial. It proves that almost certainly these players are on the good team. The only exception that I'm thinking of right now is if the spy is registering as a townsfolk. The Slayer has a very dramatic ability. Once per game during the day, they can publicly choose a player. If that player is the demon, they die. So the Slayer can win the game for the townsfolk just by guessing who the demon is. Unfortunately, they only get one shot. They have to use it wisely. If the Slayer selects Simon and Simon is not the demon, then the Slayer doesn't get another shot. And the shot will only harm demons, not minions. And when the Slayer shoots a demon successfully, the players don't get to learn the identity of that demon. Players can say whatever they want at any time, so a player can pretend to be the Slayer and select someone and nothing will happen. Slayers usually want to save their ability for the end of the game, as there's more of a chance of actually hitting the demon, but there are reasons to use it earlier. The soldier is always safe from the demon. The only way the soldier dies is if they are executed, nominate the Virgin, or are poisoned, and then the demon attacks them. The soldier may want to make themselves a target so that the demon wastes a kill that night. The mayor has two abilities. First, if there are only 3 players alive and no executions occur that day, their team wins. Second, if they die at night, another player may die instead. This one's a little confusing because there's 2 things going on. Basically, when the demon chooses to attack the mayor at night, the kill may bounce to another player, not necessarily even one on the good team. And no one except the demon knows that they didn't target that player. For example, maybe the demon attacks Sasha, but Sasha is the mayor. Therefore, the kill will bounce to Skelly, who is the Ravenkeeper. And their other ability means that when there's only 3 players alive, the mayor will want to push very hard for no executions to occur. This is difficult because the demon will try very hard for an execution to occur so that evil and good players are equal and the evil team wins. Those are all 13 townsfolk people. So let's move on to the outsiders. Each night, the butler is awoken and chooses one player that isn't themselves. During the next day, they may only vote if that player is voting. The butler can choose the same player over and over again. It doesn't have to be different players each night. The player the butler chooses is called their master. So if the master raises their hand during a vote, the butler can raise their hand also. If the master puts their hand down before their vote is counted, the butler has to put their hand down as well. It is on the butler to make sure that they are following the rules, because if the master doesn't have their hand raised and the butler does, the storyteller doesn't want to out this character as the butler. So the storyteller can either choose to secretly not count the butler's vote, which would be really suspicious if anyone counts how many votes there are, or they can choose to just let it slide. And just because the master is voting doesn't mean the butler has to. The butler is an outsider because it's very easy to think that this character is evil if they accidentally choose an evil master. The drunk doesn't know that they're drunk. They think they're a townsfolk character, but they're not. So, for example, during the initial setup, Amadeus could receive the Washerwoman character. So now they fully believe that they are the Washerwoman. However, they are actually drunk, and only the storyteller knows this. Because they are drunk, they don't actually have the Washerwoman's abilities. So any information that they learn is completely false. As another example, Sasha pulls the Undertaker during setup. So every night after an execution, Sasha is shown a character token. But because she's actually the drunk, literally none of that is true. Maybe one night the Washerwoman is killed and she's shown the spy. Maybe the spy is killed and she's shown the poisoner. Maybe every single character that dies, Sasha is shown the imp. This one is tough because there's no way to tell that you are the drunk unless you can figure out that the information you're being given is false. And even then, you could be just getting poisoned and not necessarily are drunk. The Recluse might register as evil, like a minion or demon, even if they're dead. So the Recluse is on the good guy's side, but the storyteller can choose to tell other players that they're evil. There are several ways that this can affect the game. For example, if the Recluse is seated next to the Empath may or may not see that they have an evil neighbor. As another example, the Slayer may choose to shoot the Recluse. The Recluse could die from this because the storyteller decides that they are registering as the demon. Another way the Recluse could mess with the good side is with the Investigator role. The Investigator may learn that either Skelly or Simon is the Scarlet Woman, when in reality, Simon is the Saint and Skelly is the Recluse. In this case, the Recluse is registering as a minion. A good play for the Recluse is to tell everyone as soon as possible that they are the Recluse. This way, not as much misinformation about their identity can be spread around. However, this would also be a good play for any of the evil characters. So you better be very convincing if you're the Recluse. The final outsider is the Saint. If the Saint dies by execution, the good side loses. So they have to convince everyone not to kill them without sounding evil. If the Saint dies in a way other than execution, like for example the demon killing them, the game will continue. For example, maybe there are 7 players alive and the Saint is nominated. If 4 players or more vote to kill the Saint, then the good team will lose. Okay, now on to the evil team. The first of the minions is the Poisoner. Each night they choose a player. That player is now poisoned for the rest of the night and the next day. The Poisoner secretly disrupts a character's abilities. The Poisoner goes first during the night, so any player that they poison will have their abilities impaired for that night and the entire next day. A poisoned player has no ability, but the storyteller will pretend that they do. To keep up the illusion that a poisoned player is not actually poisoned, the storyteller will wake them up at the appropriate time and give them information that may seem real but is a lie. And if a character uses a once per game ability while they are poisoned, they still have used up that ability, it just didn't work. For example, a Slayer could target a demon, successfully shoot them, but the demon will be alive because the Slayer was poisoned. And only the Poisoner and the demon will know that the demon should have been killed. The Slayer will have no idea why their ability didn't work. It's either that that character wasn't the demon, or they were poisoned. There is an added layer to the minions in that if the imp chooses to kill themselves one night, then one of the remaining minions will become the imp. So, for example, at the beginning of the night, the Poisoner could be woken up, choose to poison someone, and be put back to sleep. But then the imp chooses to kill themselves, meaning that the Poisoner is now the imp. So that original character that they poisoned is no longer poisoned because there's no Poisoner. I know that that was really confusing. Feel free to rewind and replay a couple times. That's the best take I got of me explaining everything. Each night, the spy gets to see the grimoire, and may register as good and as an outsider or a townsfolk, even if they're dead. In most cases, when you're dead, your ability stops, but not for the spy. The grimoire is basically all of the storyteller's notes. If you buy the official version of Blood on the Clocktower, it does come with a massive book that has inserts and different spots where you can put different character tokens and sheets. If you are like me, you printed stuff you found online and had your lovely partner provide artwork for it. The spy is allowed to take as long as they want reading through the storyteller's notes. Although the townsfolk will be able to tell pretty quickly if there is a spy when the night phase is lasting for like half an hour. It's also not like necessary to memorize everything. Something that the spy would want to look out for are players that the demon might want to kill, such as like an empath who learns new information each night. Or they can look for characters that aren't in play and bluff as one of those themselves. They can also look for characters that the imp should not kill, such as the Ravenkeeper. And we can't forget their secondary ability, which is that they register as a good player. So if, for example, the spy is seated next to the empath could learn that they have 0 evil neighbors. As I said in the virgins example, if a spy nominates a virgin, they could be executed because they register as a townsfolk. It's kind of up to the storyteller to determine what they want to do with the spy based on what makes the game most interesting. If there are 5 or more players alive when the demon dies, the Scarlet Woman becomes the demon. So we briefly touched on earlier that the minions could become the demon suddenly. All minions have equal opportunity to become the demon if the demon chooses to kill themselves. But only the Scarlet Woman can become the demon if the demon dies via execution that day. And only if there are 5 or more players left alive. This is really just used to make the game longer, and give the evil team more of a chance to win if their demon was killed off early. However, if there are less than 5 players when the demon is executed, good team wins. The Scarlet Woman does not become the demon. For example, if there are 5 characters left, including an imp and a Scarlet Woman, and the imp is executed, then the Scarlet Woman will become the demon, because there were 5 players when the demon was executed. As another example, the fortune teller could look at Amadeus and Skelly and learn that neither of them is a demon, but Skelly is a Scarlet Woman. And later, when the demon dies, now Skelly is the demon. So when the fortune teller looks at Amadeus and Skelly again, now they'll learn that one of them is a demon. Good luck following that. This whole thing is so confusing to say and try to explain, I'd highly recommend just playing a game. The final minion is the Baron. They make it so that 2 extra outsiders are in play. And by extra, I mean that there is a general guide that tells you how many of each category of characters there should be in your game based on how many players there will be. So with the Baron as the minion, you actually take 2 townsfolk away and add in 2 outsiders. This change to the setup of the game does not revert if the Baron dies. All character types of townsfolk and outsiders are set once the game starts. Really, the only time that a character type changes is if the imp dies and one of the minions has to become the new demon. And finally, for the star of the show, the demon. I wish I had little demon horns for this bit. In the Trouble Brewing script, there is 1 demon character, and that is the imp. Each night except the first, they choose a player to kill. And if the imp chooses to kill themselves, a minion becomes the new demon. Because most characters act after the demon, a killed character will not be able to use their ability that night. With the exception, of course, as we know, of the Ravenkeeper, who is exclusively able to do their ability at night if they are killed by the demon. The first night, the imp doesn't get to kill anyone, but they do learn who their minions are, and they learn 3 good characters that are not in play. They can use these 3 characters to bluff. They can choose one for themselves and try to communicate to their minions the other ones. For example, the first night, the imp can learn that Amadeus and Sasha are their minions. They do not get to learn what type of minions they are, just that they are their minions. And the imp gets to learn that the Washerwoman, Monk, and Soldier are not in play. There are also some other character types called Travelers and Fabled, but this is just a beginner's introduction to Trouble Brewing, so we won't talk about those. If anyone wants me to eventually talk about Travelers and Fabled, I can, but for now we will move on to how the game is played. Each night, players secretly use their abilities while the storyteller manages the game. Each day, players wake up, discuss, accuse, nominate, and vote to execute one player they suspect is evil. There doesn't have to be an execution each day, but it's probably better if there is. Only living players can nominate, but anyone alive or dead can talk. Dead players do lose most of their voting powers, but they maintain 1 final ghost vote. There is only 1 ghost vote per player, and they can use it to vote on any nomination. If the nomination fails, they do not get their vote back, so they have to be very strategic when using it. A player is executed only if they receive a majority vote. This majority is calculated by the number of alive players. And if the vote ties, neither player is executed. The game ends when either the good or evil team wins. The good team will win when the demon is executed and dies, and the evil team wins when evil players are either equal to or outnumber living good players. So who can you trust when everyone might be lying? Who's bluffing, who's poisoned, and who's smiling while they plan your death? Welcome to Ravenswood Bluff, and welcome to Blood on the Clocktower. Thank you for watching. I hope this was helpful in any way as an introductory to the game. Leave any questions that you have in the comments and I will attempt to answer them.